Well, hello and welcome into the Beyond the Youth Room podcast. My name is Ryne and this is Keith. And today we're going to be talking to youth leaders about how you can eliminate the gender gap in your youth ministry. So stay tuned. Women build relationships face to face. Men build relationships side by side. Are you creating an environment in your youth ministry where both can play out?
Man, my selection of icebreakers, is it like pushing away more girls because they feel awkward about connecting in that way?
We see Jesus as a baby in a manger. It's like Revelation also depicts him as this king,
warrior on a horse.
Yes, and when guys see that, they're like, whoa, So mass discipleship doesn't work because disciples are handmade, not mass produced.
Yeah.
If you sing songs like "And Heaven Meets Earth with a Sloppy Wet Kiss," and it's like, guys are like, what am I singing? Like, this makes me uncomfortable.
What you're saying is how we do our programming could make a difference in how students that are guys connect or girls connect more. And so let's walk it through practically. So I want you to give us some practical action steps if you have more guys than girls.
Yep.
And then some practical action steps if you have more girls than guys. Can you do that for us?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Ryne, you wanted to cover this topic, and admittedly, I was like, I don't know if we should cover this topic because I feel like I don't have a lot to contribute to the solution here because there is a gap. We covered the Gen Z report about how there's more females in Gen Z that would check the box of religious nuns. We always want to clarify NONES, not NUNS, like Catholic nuns. But yeah, there's more and more females in this upcoming generation that are not religious, or like they don't affiliate with any religion or with followers of Christ or anything. Then guys, they're same age, and so I think there was it depends on the age because there's different categories of that. But within Gen Z, I think there was a gap. 6%, if accounting for the same age between guys and girls. 6% more girls would say that they're not affiliated with any religion. So with that said, this is experientially true in our own ministries where there can be more guys than there are girls, which has not always been the trend. So I've been around the youth ministry block for over 20 years.
Say it loud. Be proud about it.
So, and that's not always true. There was so many more girls before. That was just a known. It was just there's more girls in church than there are guys. That was and there's even studies done, which you've alluded to before, in previous podcasts about what is the name of the book?
And we're going to talk about today why men hate going to church.
And there was a huge push to we have to make the appeal to men, godly men, to be in church, and then women will follow. But if we do the opposite, if we focus on reaching women, then men usually won't see that that it's for them or whatever, and not stick around. Yeah. So now we have the opposite issue,
which I want to get into because I think it's not as clear as it is on its face. And that's why I wanted to do this. Well, the reason why I wanted to do this, I'm always super passionate about this, but in our free school resource community, which anybody can join, click the description below. There's free resources, communities.
You can ask questions. There's live polls.
All sorts of things.
Yeah, even live events now.
Yeah, and when you go to click to join, you'll see where you're located. What is your biggest win this past year? We want to celebrate it with you. But then also, what's your biggest challenge? And it kind of helps us, even for this podcast, to kind of be like, okay, how can we provide more value? And one of the biggest things has been hey, we're struggling with guys or we're struggling with girls. And so I think there's the overarching general principles, which we'll talk about today. But there's also your local ministry context where everybody looks different and everything, you can't copy paste. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons that we've learned is mass discipleship doesn't work because disciples are handmade, not mass produced. Yeah. And so
great quote.
Yeah. We couldn't remember who said it, but
it was at an event that we were attending.
Yes. Yeah. And so I think we want to dive in today to say, you might be looking at your ministry and saying, why do we have so many more girls than guys? Or you might be saying, why do we have so many more guys and girls? Or you might be saying, why do we have so many guys in high school, but not as many girls, but in middle school? And so I think we want to start off by it's never going to be 50-50. We can't control this. We just want to be faithful with those that God has given to us.
Yep.
But it also helps when your head hits the pillow at night after youth group to say, I'm doing this the way that I think God wants me to be doing this, and in a way that is, equally accessible to, teenage guys and teenage girls to grow in their faith with Christ or come to know Christ.
Yeah.
And yes, what really kind of spurred this on in my early years in ministry, I mean, this is year 6, so relatively, hopefully I'm still early in my ministry.
Just getting started, man.
Maybe I'll look back and I'll be like, that was actually it, you know? Yeah, the book Why Men Hate Going to Church by David Murrow, they actually looked into this. And so I'll kind of preface this by what was kind of pre-Gen Z, give a caveat of maybe Gen Z is changing this, or maybe there's actually something going on in those statistics that maybe we need to lean more into what Murrow is talking about. So the biblical premise was, or excuse me, the premise of the book was they studied churches, and essentially once a church became a certain percentage female, think 55 to 60% female, the men almost never came. I mean, it just kept going female. Like there was a mass exodus of men from that local church, and it just never went back. But what's interesting is they could never really find a study where it went 60% men and then it kept going, because it just didn't happen. So what they were finding is there really was no way where a woman would walk into a church and go, this is too masculine, I'm not coming back, as far as a local church. But there was many men going into a local church saying, yeah, this is too feminine, I'm not coming back. And so the whole premise of the book is, how have we structured this to where men feel it's feminine? And it talks about things like, some of this, it might be outdated for you, but some of it's not. It's like, is your entire pulpit covered in flowers? Like, that might symbol that this is effeminate.
Manly.
Yeah,
manly.
Sure. And it's like, we kind of say that, but there's still some, I mean, there's women all the time who are like, oh, like, I'd love to give flowers. It's like, really appreciate that, but hey, we're not going to do that. If you sing songs like "In Heaven Meets Earth with a Sloppy Wet Kiss," and it's like, guys are like, what am I singing? Like, this makes me uncomfortable.
That's a controversial lyric, apparently. Like,
yeah.
well,
Well, they've changed it to unforeseen.
Yeah. Crowder got a lot of flack for that.
Yeah.
I mean,
And so even this idea of like, well, you know, like, Jesus is love. And it's like, is that true? Absolutely. But are we framing that in a way where it makes guys who aren't raised in Christianity kind of going like, what do you mean, like, Jesus loves? Like, can you unpack that for me a little bit? And so their kind of context was, okay, how do we make this to where both men and women can thrive? Yeah. What are some studies we've seen? And what, I didn't tell you this ahead of time.
Oh, surprise.
So they did a study in, I think it was Sweden, and they looked at the percentage of men and women, moms and dads, and their kids who stayed in the faith. Okay. So now there were some false studies that came out around this, and there's a very prominent group that kind of attached itself, which was, if the child comes to know Christ, this is the percentage. If the woman comes to know Christ, this is the percentage. If the dad comes to know Christ, this is the percentage that follow. And you've never actually been able to find the actual study that's been done. Yeah. So this is different than that. I've
seen that before, but not enough to not to believe it enough to share it.
Correct. So this is a different study than that. They didn't go that route. Okay. They said simply this. They studied if only the mom participated in church. I think it was about 2% of the kids stayed with their faith. Now, this is Sweden, so it's a little bit different than the U.S. If both parents did, it jumped to like 27%. Wow. Interestingly enough, if only the dad did, it actually went even higher.
Really?
Yes. Now, you say, well, does that mean like the mom should stop going to the church? No, I think what it points to is, in those cases, the male especially took ownership in it. And so what they said is, okay, this is kind of the overarching theme. This is not to downplay women and their importance in the ministry. Absolutely want to be clear about that. But there's some ways that we can do this. And so what I'd like to do is just kind of spend some time talking about, in the youth ministry context for today's world, with what we know about Gen Z, the trends are still going to play out. We can't tell you where it's going to be 10 years from now. But my theory is the reason why we're seeing more women walk away is because the church has been afraid to not like hit this head on, like this needs to be a sermon or pulpit, but to kind of have this conversation of like, how do we successfully, like, are we creating an environment that is healthy for guys and girls, because they're very different, and to lean into that.
Yeah. Well, as I was mentioning before we started filming, so, we've noticed that when we have strong leaders, so I'm part of a multi-site church. We have different locations, and there's different leaders on our staff even, and volunteers that lead different parts of our ministries across all locations. And someone pointed out on our staff that there seemed to be a correlation with people that had more predominant like female leaders running certain ministries at their location, that they had a higher participation in just camp numbers. So we're just looking at our camp numbers across the board, summer, winter camp. We do 4 camps a year. So middle school, high school, both winter camp and summer camp. And so it seemed to be a correlation here. And even for us, like just attendance wise, I've got my attendance pulled up here, broken down by gender, and then also, middle school and high school. And there is interesting, like, and I mentioned this before, that our high schoolers, there is a pretty large gap between our strongest group is the high school guys and our least strongest group is the high school girls. And then it's flipped for middle school. So we actually have more middle school girls and less middle school guys. And what I noticed, this is just anecdotally, so like I don't even know if this is connected, but I think it's fascinating because I want to come back to what you said about the parents. I'd be curious to know, because I don't have that data, like of like which parents are involved or if they are, right in front of me. But I thought that was interesting because I might go back and look to see if I can figure out a correlation there. But anyways, what I have anecdotally observed just from our data at my location is I had a female staff before, and we had a very strong female presence before when she was on staff. She left. Her husband took a pastoral job in a different state, and so they moved away. Which is, so we had like a gap a while where I was just the only one on staff at our location. And then we recently hired someone, but in that time we had a decrease in girls participating. And then since we've hired another female staff, there's been an increase of girls participating. So I do think there is a correlation there with your leadership and just how, if you have more people to dedicate towards caring for females, you're going to have more females. If you have more people dedicated to caring for males, like, strong male leaders, then I think you're going to have a stronger male population. So I think there's a correlation there, but I would be curious to also know the differences in the parent involvement of, like, if there's both parents, one parent, or if there's, mom or dad. Oh, I don't have any of that data, but I now you got me like curious where I'm like, man, I wonder if that's playing out here too, where there might be a single parent. I know if some of the, and then I wonder if it matters with the gender of the kid, if one parent or the other is, what I'm saying? So like we have a single dad that his son is involved, but I'm wondering if he had a daughter, would she be less likely to be involved or, what I'm saying? Or vice versa. If there was a single mom and she has a son involved, which we do have as well. But if she had a daughter, would it be different? So I wonder if it has to do with anything. So just, not like a conclusive thing, but curious about the
and
data.
What I would say too, before we kind of get into, I think what we want to spend time is like making sure that your ministry context and programs are geared to where both can thrive and succeed. But before we even get into that, I think I would concur with what you say. For instance, like our high school guys, so our 2 largest small groups, our 8th grade girls. We've had as many as 21 in that small group, and our 12th grade guys. So our 2 biggest small groups are our 12th grade guys and our 8th grade girls. And so there's no like, this is the perfect way to do this. It varies depending on even classes. Because if you get 2 kids in your 6th grade class and the next year you get 20 kids in your 6th grade class, like it's going to change. But I think just kind of that general principles. And here's my big takeaway from the book. And I think it'd be worthwhile us kind of unpacking what this looks like in a youth ministry context. Women build relationships face to face. So women,
what do you mean by that? Just looking at each other?
So what we're doing right now, okay, having a face-to-face conversation, that is generally more how women build relationships than men. I'll give you the clearest example of this, okay? You go to a cookout. You go to you've got all your friends coming out for a cookout. The women are going to be inside talking. The men are going to be whoever's grilling. The men are all going to be, there. And
I feel so exposed.
Yes. Women build relationships face to face, but men build relationships side by side.
So like while they're doing something.
Correct. While they're accomplishing a common goal. Or while they're participating in something together. And so what this means is you can take women, now there's variances and exceptions, but primarily you can put women in a room, give them a Bible, they'll sit in a circle, and before a few weeks they all know each other. If you do that with guys, the next week they're not really.
As you're saying that, I'm thinking of like even some of the icebreakers that we do are very like you accomplish it together, like and the ones that I've gotten opposition from girls specifically are the ones that like you have to accomplish something like, but if it's like a discussion question or if like more relational, So interesting. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm thinking like, man, my selection of icebreakers, is it like pushing away more girls because they
Yes.
feel awkward about connecting in that way?
So if we take this and put it into a ministry context,
Yeah.
and I want to be careful how we say this because that is kind of like observable. Like it's you can't really argue against that. Now I can't put I'm not pointing to chapter verse saying this is true.
It's not across the board.
But what I would say is, okay, now we're going to move off of like pretty much accepted principle. And now we got to go into a little bit of like somebody listening might have a different opinion than me. And that's all good. We can all be adults and hopefully.
Which we welcome this discussion.
Absolutely.
It's like the community, the school community that we're part of, like people can contribute to these thoughts. And we want to be learned.
Correct.
Learned.
We need whatever that is. But so I mean, let's just play a little game. All right. So you walk into a youth ministry room.
Yep.
Like
as a
student.
Okay, as a student.
Okay. And somebody gets up, gives a message. Or let me even back up further. There is worship. Okay. So there's 4 songs we're singing.
Okay.
Somebody gets up, gives a message.
Okay.
Okay. And then we spend time in groups in prayer. Who is probably going to feel more comfortable in that space, a guy or girl?
If you know how they relate, how they build relationships. So side by side, men, like when they're doing something together, women face to face. I mean, that sounds like more women would connect with that.
Yep. Okay. And so if we have a youth ministry that is primarily, again, is there anything wrong with worship? No, we should be worshiping. Is there anything wrong with teaching? No, we should be teaching. Is there anything wrong with prayer? No, we should be prayer. But I think how that plays out in our ministry is going to have a big impact on if we're creating an environment for both. Now, let's go the opposite. You have a game that you're playing that has a biblical truth attached to it or not, even if it's just the first 20 minutes of your ministry, okay? Not hangout sitting time. You have like a game or something that you're doing.
For them to do.
Then you have a part of your large group that is you're sharing the goals that you're having, that you're working towards, and there's a challenge to do this. And then when you get into discussion, it's not just about what do you think or this. It's how have you been doing with this? Now who is that kind of who's going to feel more comfortable?
Yeah, the guys. And I would say, like, along those lines, our high school guys have been the most responsive to our gospel challenges, like to share the gospel. Like, they have like the most conversations because it feels like they're living on mission.
Yeah. Now, here's what goes back to what hinges on this study that they did that plays out anecdotally. Okay. What's interesting, though, is when you take that route of casting a bold vision, one of the values of the 7, gospel advancing, focusing on disciple multiplication strategy, like all that stuff, girls still are comfortable in that and they'll participate in that. So in our ministry, we have a hangout time that is, we're not attaching a biblical lesson to it. It's just hangout and we're playing games, whatever.
Yeah.
Why? Because we want our leaders to be able to connect with kids in a way that is natural for them to do. But we also want guys to just be able to get to know each other. And guys are going to get to know each other better by saying, hey, well, let's play pickup basketball. Hey, you're on my team, versus sitting in a room saying, oh, what's your name? Like, if guys couldn't tell you a single person's name at youth group, most likely. So, but what you'll see is if you walk into our youth room, you'll see, or in our free time, you'll see girls passing the volleyball. You'll see girls playing basketball. You'll see girls playing soccer. So they don't feel uncomfortable in this environment. But if you were to go into a room where everybody's just sitting down, a lot of times the guys are like,
this
I don't
feels
know
uncomfortable. Yeah.
So the point I'm trying to make is biblically how this plays out. We just want to make sure that we're creating an environment where it's not super one way or the other. I mean, if we're having like tackle football drills, like at youth group, like girls are probably like, I'm not good. But that's kind of the thought of this is when you look at how you are doing discipleship and how you're doing even evangelism, it's like women build relationships face to face, men build relationships side by side. Are you creating an environment in your youth ministry where both can play out? And I think a lot of us, we just kind of view it as like, we sang songs, somebody preached a message, and then we went home. That's what we're called to do.
Yeah.
The meeting of the body of believers. But is there also this other side to it of, as a ministry, we are accomplishing a common goal. We have a mission and we are training and holding each other accountable. Now we have, it's almost like there's these 7 values that start to appear that work into this.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest things of now guys and girls both, jump onto that.
Yep.
Because we have the CrossFit ping pong balls, like in our experience, the guys are sharing the gospel, the girls are sharing the gospel, but we're seeing more groups of girls doing this versus more guys individually, which again, society that plays out too. Men are more, they're more fine being by themselves.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so let's make this practical. We've been complimented on our practicality of our podcast recently.
Not our vocabulary, but
not our vocabulary. Yeah, I'm making up words as I go. But yeah, people have given us feedback that they appreciate our podcast because it's practical. It's not just philosophical.
Yep.
We've talked a lot of philosophy.
Yep.
Not like Friedrich Nietzsche, but
not like Socrates.
Yeah, like not some, but like really like ministry philosophy and maybe some speculation or like some estimation or guesstimation of why this might be happening.
Yes.
Okay, so let's walk through some practical steps. Say there's a youth leader that's watching this, listening to this. They have a large gender gap, which statistically might point to more probable that there's more guys than there are girls in their youth ministry,
or vice versa. I mean,
yeah, of course, but I'm just saying, but according to some of the stats, whatever,
to some of the
more
new,
common.
But when I talk to people, it's about 50-50.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then you mean 50-50 in the sense that like some of them have a higher girl ratio, some of them have. Okay. So they're trying to unpack why this is. It could come down to even the parents.
Yep.
It could come down to which, obviously you're going to change parents.
Yeah.
So it might be based on leadership. And I was even walking through this too, like even our high school, because I was like, man, do I have like this crazy outgoing dynamic like high school leader? And that's why it's why it's the most populated. Our high school guys group is the largest versus like my high school girls. Maybe she's the dynamic. Yeah. Both of them are led by very quiet introverted leaders.
Yeah.
So it's not even like I don't even see a correlation with that. Like they're both faithful, like longevity. So it's not even, this one's been here longer. No, like our high school group girl leader, I had her as a student.
Yeah.
And she's like in her late 20s now. So she's been here for a long time. And so anyways, with that, I don't see a correlation with that. But what you're saying is how we do our programming could make a difference in how students that are guys connect or how girls connect more. And so let's walk it through practically. So I want you to give us some practical like action steps if you have more guys than girls.
Yep.
And then some practical action steps if you have more girls than guys. Can you do that for us?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you have more guys than girls, if the study holds true, it's probably won't stay like that for long. Okay. So that's what's interesting is like if you have more guys than girls, based on the longevity of the study, what they found is the girls will eventually catch up. That was my personal experience. At one point, we had more guys than girls. Now we can't outpace, not that we're trying to, but like they keep inviting friends. But if you do have more guys than girls, I would just simply ask, number one, do you have a strong female leadership? Again, not strong as in personality, but as in faithful, and just really engaging and willing to have those conversations. So are you creating space in your ministry for people to be vulnerable? Are you creating space in your ministry? Is there a consistent enough point to where they can have enough time face to face with other girls to create relationships? So how does this play out? If your teaching time is the majority of your youth programming, but you don't have a longer small group time, you're going to struggle to hold girls because they don't have an ability to talk.
Yeah.
Girls love to talk. Guys are more so quiet.
Give more time in your environment or like in your program for girls to talk or like for everybody to discuss what they're learning.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then
which that actually plays into both guys and girls as far as like they're very dialogue driven in the culture. Like it's not just teach me only. It's let's talk, have a conversation about this.
Yep.
So that makes a lot of sense even with some of the stats that we've seen on Gen Z.
Yep. And then two, I would say this kind of goes to both, but I think specifically with girls, it's like girls really want to know that you care about them. Guys do too, but a guy's kind of like, I like coming, so I'll keep coming. A girl, if they feel like, hey, nobody really would miss me if I'm not here. So it's like also with girls, making sure that you're connecting with them in between youth events, or regardless of how that is, obviously
inappropriate
female
ways.
leaders to female students.
It's a given.
But I mean, in terms of like, for instance, Guys don't really care how many offsite events we do. Like if I was like, hey guys, we're having a bonfire at my house, I'd have some guys show up. But if my wife does that with her small group, like they're all like, oh, I want to be there. Like I can't miss that. And so you want to make sure that you're having opportunity for girls because they're more social.
Yep.
To have more opportunities outside of youth group to where it feels more like a friendship and not like, we're just here at youth group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So for us, we've done like a guys and a girls night, and it's gone off for like we had a huge number of girls that attended. So I mean, like I was like, whoa, that hit a nerve. So yeah. So even just events like that are specifically for girls or specifically for guys or just co-ed.
I mean, I would say specifically in this instance, like at a small group level, like I would say at a small group level, making sure that they're having opportunities outside of youth group to really build those friendships.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so flip the the idea. So we have, what are some practical action steps for a youth leader that has way more girls than guys?
Yes. Number one, is there, and again, this goes back to the values. Is there a vision? Is there something that we can accomplish together? Because guys don't normally stick around just because of relationships, just for relationships' sake. Like men want to feel like they accomplished something. So do you have something that you are working towards as a youth ministry or as a small group to where even a face-to-face conversation like we're having right now still feels like we're accomplishing something? And that's what I was actually having a conversation with my wife about this, where she's like, I'm like, she's really looking for community. And I'm like, I have community. I'm like, Keith and I have community. She's like, but you guys like only talk about work. I'm like, yeah, that's why we have community, because we're like accomplishing something together. So it's side by side. So again, it plays out time and time again. So do you have something that everybody can rally around, that there's accountability and that they feel like I'm not just a warm body in a room, like I'm working towards something? I want to be careful. Like the opposite is not true. It's not like girls, I don't want to accomplish something like they do.
Yeah, no, they do.
And then also, if it is worship, what songs are you singing? Like think through the lyrics and be like, as a guy, my boss calls them like Jesus is my boyfriend songs. Like, are you singing songs where it's just
You're not
this?
Provide any examples, are you?
No, probably not.
Just stop right there.
But are you singing songs that are only focusing on the love of Jesus and the friendship of Jesus, which again are completely true? Are we also talking about the, again, we talk about like we see Jesus as a baby in a manger. It's like Revelation also depicts him as this king,
warrior on a horse.
Yes. And when guys see that, they're like, whoa, So also too, what you're teaching, like what are you focusing on the life of Christ? Because both are true. And then also just very simply, it's like, if there's a worship session, there's a teaching time, and then there's a small group. It's like guys are like, I don't know about this. Do you have a place where guys can, even if it's just basketball or accomplishing capture the flag or just something where they're building relationships side by side to where they don't think this is like biblical, but it is, because now I got to know you because, hey, you do this, I do this. Oh yeah, we had fun. Now we can have a conversation together to where we're iron sharpening iron.
Yeah. It's good. Yeah, a lot of stuff there to unpack, and even some practical tips on how to change some of that stuff. So yes, how we can reach more of whatever we're lacking, and I've even got some actionable steps to implement in our. I'm thinking even as you're talking, so we have less high school boys, and I'm wondering if we're giving them too much discussion group time. And maybe just to include another activity in there that might change up things where they're like, okay, this isn't so painful to have 45 minutes to an hour to talk.
Yeah.
Like,
but
then the other, like the girls are like, yes, like we love this much time.
But what's interesting with guys is once you build the relationship, now that discussion can really flow. It's not like they never want to talk. You and I have a problem of getting podcasts recorded because when we get together, we
talk so
But it's like, but the relationship was built before that.
It's good. Yeah. Cool. Anything else to add before we close?
One final thing. I was having a conversation with a guy who was like, we have all guys. I can't.
There's no girls.
We can't get girls.
Well, I mean, you had the opposite at at the middle school, the club at middle school.
Yes,
Like we had they had all girls,
and
and it was like, and I remember one of my students from my ministry showed up,
Yes.
like by accident,
Yeah.
like.
Which this year we've actually got more guys, which will be interesting to hear.
Yeah, but he was like the only guy out of like 20 girls or something. Yeah.
But I was talking to a youth leader, and they only have guys, and his wife is like serving faithfully, and so he's like, I feel bad, like she's here serving. What do we do? And I just we walked through some of this stuff, but then I just went back to John 17, and it's like Jesus says, "No, I revealed you to those whom you gave to me." And so just kind of going back to like, again, we can't control this. We just want to make sure that we're setting both up, to be able to hit the needs of both. But also just go back to like, whoever God's giving you, just be faithful with them.
And he also just appreciate. I mean, because we often think about what we don't have.
Yes.
And I think like, we can always take a step back and be like, praise God that we even have any students.
Yes.
Because I remember when I first started as a youth pastor, as a small church, while I was still in college in South Carolina, and I remember planning a lesson and like preparing for youth group, and then just looking out the window to see if anyone would show up. And some nights no one did. And it was like, all right, well, I guess I'll use this lesson for next week.
Yeah.
So like I can appreciate that where it's like, oh my goodness, like things have changed where I'm like, oh man, we only have this many like guys or whatever. It's like not enough girls. It's like, oh my gosh, like praise God that you have any students to even care for, to disciple, and to train and invest in. So so I think there's a contentment issue there too also where we gotta evaluate like we have it pretty good, know, where if we have any students at all. So good stuff. Well, that concludes another episode of Beyond the Youth Room, and we have a free training for you for student missionaries. If you go to edgeclub.org/training, you can access that. We'll also put in the show notes our school community where we're just building. I think we're up to like 125 youth leaders, 127 youth leaders that have joined already just since we launched a few weeks ago. But if you want to contribute to that discussion and to just be sharpened by other youth pastors that are living in the trenches, then you can join that community below for free. All of our training is free by generous donors of our ministry, and so we want you to take advantage of it and to use it. And we just ask that if you get any value from this content, that you should share with other people. It's the best compliment that you could give us. So thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next episode.